Equinox Prime, classed as 3 frames in one, but the combined form here you can only see in social areas such as Cetus, Fortuna, relays, or on your landing craft. The rest of the time, she is either in, I've missed it, night form, or he is in day form, or the combined form of the two. Each and every one of these actually looking pretty nice. That, to be honest, probably the best night look for any of them, including the Tenogen and stuff. Not really a fan of the combined form. It looks nice, don't get me wrong. There's just something weird about it, and the day form, I actually like that. The helmet more than anything else, because the standard one having the one horn, and then you go to night form and having the one horn, looks weird, and obviously you have the combined horns on this, and I think it's the combined horns on the combined form that's what makes the combined look kind of weird. But compared to the normal one, 20 more armor, 15 more energy, and 25 more health. There is also a change in the polarities. Instead of it coming with just a D and a V, he also has another D and a V, which is pretty nice. So buff to armor, buff to energy, buff to health, buff to polarities an extra 2, and a buff to his looks. Normal Equinox has the day aspect that you have to build all of these for, the night aspect that you have to build all of these for, then you combine the two making 9 blueprints in total, whereas Equinox Prime here has the chassis, which is a Lith M4, Lith M4 relic, the systems, which is a Meso E2, the neuroptics, Meso M3, and the actual blueprint, which is an Axi K5 relic, and that's it. Just the 4 parts. I actually went into this with weird expectations because it's just Equinox. If you have the normal one, the Prime one is just slightly better, but there was something about this. She just seemed to survive way longer. He was a very weird frame to be playing with. I actually found myself doing things in Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, which, by the way, you cannot take an unranked frame. Somebody was bound to go to the comment section and mention that if I didn't, so you have to actually get the build set up before you can go in there and do that, but I actually found myself in there playing more in the night form than the day form, because obviously first ability metamorphosis just swaps between the two, between day form and night form. Temporary gaining, bonus shields and armor when you turn to night form, bonus damage and speed when you swap to day form. Then there is rest and rage. In night form, targets are put to sleep, but in day form, targets become more vulnerable to damage. This is where I found myself using night form more than day form, because usually I use day form and just kind of help deal damage, but I found myself really enjoying running around putting them to sleep, which I never really did with Equinox. I know a lot of people do though. Her third ability, Pacify and Provoke, in night form reduces damage inflicted by nearby enemies. In day form increases ability strength for nearby allies. Again, I always favour day form because I would be increasing the ability strength for nearby allies. Unless you're running around with a Speed Nova, in which case they tend to shout at you for doing this. And with Mend and Maim, in night form, allies are healed with the death of nearby enemies, whereas in day form, the enemies that are killed, it's put as? They bleed, and it builds up a... It's at the top of the screen, I can't remember what it's called. It builds up like a counter, and eventually you can just disperse this and take out enemies within range. If you build this for range, that is what is basically meant by the Elite Sanctuary Onslaught build. You build it for day form. Now usually I use day form because Maim also stuns them for a second or two when they come within range, which is great because when they're not dealing massive amounts of damage to you, it means you can deal massive amounts of damage to them. Assuming you don't do what I did and former everything before jumping into Elite Sanctuary Onslaught so you can get everything to level 30 before you finish your 8 waves and leave. And even though I didn't actually end up putting another former in here, I was tempted on a dash for Primed Flow because I wouldn't for any situation say this was the Elite Sanctuary Onslaught build I was referring to. This, I actually ran Redirection, Vitality, we have Cunning Drift, Augur Secrets, Augur Reach, Intensify, Stretch, Prime Continuity, Prime Flow, and absolutely zero efficiency mods. That's not really the way you want to run any build. I built it just for range, not for dealing damage with Maim, but for stunning the enemies, and I added the duration for putting them to sleep in night form, and don't ask me what that ability is called, because there's 8 abilities for this frame, because for some reason Metamorphosis has 2 different names, when it really the first ability just swaps between one and the other. And I mean, for the Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, the build that I was running before wasn't the best. It only had a power strength of 70, but had the 250 range, and honestly it worked ridiculously well. I went a completely different, unexpected approach towards this frame, and I still cannot figure out why. And even kind of converting it so it's not max range, because I know for a fact I can get this much wider than this, but throwing overextend in there instead of shields or health, whichever one you happen to want to lose. I have my Sentinel set up to heal me, so I would take the shields out and throw overextend in, would take this thing to a range of 280, which is still better than the build I had on normal Equinox, which is weird. But sadly, putting that in there, the power strength went down a lot. It went to 94, which is still somehow better than what I had, but running shields meant I had 154% strength and 190% range, which 190% range was still more than good enough for what I was using it for. It wasn't as effective, but honestly, I was not as... I don't want to say disappointed, because my goal with Equinox Prime was always going to be to use him inside of the Sanctuary Onslaught, any of them, but this was the first time in quite a while that as soon as I got Equinox to 30, I put I put a lens straight on her instead of going, okay, what can I former, how can I set this up? Yes, okay, as forementioned, I will, and probably have by the time this video has gone up, put a dash in for Primed Flow, because Primed Flow will probably be staying in here, and if it doesn't, I can easily fit a dash in there that takes up as many points, because, well, it's really easy to, and that build kind of just fell in there. It was accidental, well, kind of. Yes, she is a really good frame. He is well worth the farm, because when it comes to Equinoxes, this is an easier way to get an Equinox. Works pretty much better than the standard one anyway, but it's just like a badge of honor to have the normal one over the Prime. I did all of the work, so I'm going to stick with the normal one, and my Equinox Prime is just sitting there in the wardrobe collecting dust while I use my normal one that took me, what, 9 days? At least a minimum of 6.5 days to build. If you built the 2 frames at once, which is 3 days, because it's 3 days each, but all of the parts are 12 hours each, so there's 3.5 days, and then combining them is another 3 days, so that's 6.5 days. Takes nearly a week to build Equinox. Equinox Prime, 3 days, and half the work, but still definitely worth it, because works much better than the normal Equinox does. Just those slight little increases made this totally worth it. He is a well worth farming frame. But anyway, we'll leave this off here for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch yous next time.